permanent direction for your career path. I think you should see it as the start of your journey. And even if while you're doing it, your interests change or whatnot, you shouldn't box yourself in just because of the fact that you studied a specific something. That's my view of it.
That's actually quite insightful because I feel a lot of people really do feel boxed into pursuing a career that's directly related to what they're studying. Mm-hmm. So, or people feel that it may be too late to try branch out in something else or to try pick up something else where they feel like they won't be as good as someone who potentially had studied that sort of field or something related to it. So that's actually really great advice. So once you completed your degree at UP, what was your first job after that like? Did you actually enjoy that job? Did you feel more in tune with what you were doing? Like, how did that feel? How was that experience?
It was very interesting because I went for job interviews in Johannesburg and Pretoria. And it was my first time in Johannesburg, despite the fact that I had grown up in Pretoria, that's close to Johannesburg. I'd actually never been to Johannesburg. And I got a job offer in Johannesburg and in Pretoria. And I remember my father told me, take the job offer in Johannesburg because you need to expand your horizons. You need to meet people from different backgrounds and with different viewpoints, because if you stay in Pretoria, you're going to just meet people that has a similar outlook as you. So luckily, I will always say I'm so grateful for the first job I got. It was with a company called Swiss Re, and it was an international reinsurance company. And the people that hired me, I think they changed the direction of my life because of the fact that I did get exposed to a variety of people with different thinking styles, different cultures, different backgrounds. And even though I hated the job I did for the first 2 years, I didn't really enjoy it. It was too limited. It was valuations. And I realized in that period that was not really something that I enjoyed that much. But they gave me the opportunity to move to a different portion of the business where I actually did a lot of non-actuarial work, which was more to do with business development, customer relationships. And it gave me the opportunity to travel up into Africa, travel overseas, and it had a far more business mindset. And I think that made me realize that what I really am interested in is more the business side of things. And that's why I'm always really grateful that I got that first job at Swiss Re.
So would you say the experience that you had of traveling to different parts of the continent and just traveling all over, that really helped you grow a lot in terms of your business acumen?
No, it definitely did. It also made me really humble because in the beginning, obviously, I was just the lackey, right? So I was traveling with my boss. And so if the client wanted, so in December, a lot of the clients would travel to South Africa as well. So they would bring their wives. If they wanted a suit made, I would help. If they wanted to have photos developed, I would help. And I think that also taught me that there is no job that is beneath you, because every one of those jobs teach you something, whether it is got nothing to do with what you were trained to do. A lot of those jobs taught me how to interact with people from different backgrounds, different levels of education, and to be able to connect with them. And yeah, so never think a job is beneath you. I think all jobs teach you something.
That's amazing. I definitely do agree with the part of every job teaches you something. Even if it does turn out to be a bad experience, there's always something that you can kind of get out of it that you'll carry on with you for, you know, the rest of your career. So after Swiss Re, what was the next point in your career map?
So it was quite interesting. At Swiss Re, there was a very, on that first day I started, which was actually, I think on the 2nd of January, 1995. That's how long ago. There was a very talented group of people that actually started with me, a group of young people. And at that stage, I'd been with Swiss Re for about 6 years. And it felt as though I wanted to do something else. And how old was I then? 27 or 26, I can't remember. And one of the guys that wasn't working directly with me, but he was involved right in the beginning with my career. He said him and another guy are thinking of starting a business, and they want to do a consulting business where they consult to the insurance industry, and they need someone who knows about short-term insurance, because at that stage, the work I was doing was very much in short-term insurance and not life insurance. And was I interested? And I thought, well, that sounds cool. I like these people, and I think that would be enjoyable. So I didn't. It's quite funny, because if I think about it, at that stage, I got married in the January. We started the business, and we didn't have any capital to start it. So we did it by not paying ourselves any money for a long time, and building capital through doing consulting work. And we had Quindiem Consulting for a period of 11 years, and we then sold it to Ernst & Young, Advisory. And then I ended up as a partner in advisory at Ernst & Young for 5.5 years. I think at Quindiem, I learned a lot of what to do when you build a business and what not to do, because it was more forgiving of mistakes if you in consulting in some way. And I think we were so naive to start a consulting business at that age, if I look back on it, but it did stand us in good stead. And I think the thing I learned there the most is the relationships that you build and the context that you make throughout your career is really important. So never alienate anyone, because you never know when you run into them again, and when it can be beneficial, because they might be in a different role or different post, or, and if you alienated them, it could very adversely affect your business. So I think never leave enemies behind. Always just try and remain professional and build good relationships with people. Then if I think about Ernst & Young was actually really the first time I was a part of a really big corporate, because Swiss Re is a big corporate, but in South Africa, the local contingent was only about 65 people. So we weren't large, it was small. And Quindiem itself, when we sold it to Ernst & Young, we were only, I think we were 27 people. So it was still, it was small. And when I joined Ernst & Young, it was the first time I was really part of a business that was very big. And that learned me, I grew up at Ernst & Young. I always say that, because up until that point, I was always in an environment where everyone was pulling in the same direction. Everyone was well-intended. Whereas I think if you go into a big corporate, things are somewhat different. Culturally, it's different. The level of freedom you are given is different. Making a decision where previously, I could just check it with someone like Alex, because one of my co-founders at Naked was with me at Swiss Re, Quindiem, EY, and now at Naked. So we'll just talk about it, and then we can decide we can do it. Whereas in a corporate, you can't necessarily do that. So you learn skills of persuasion, negotiation skills to get what you want, all those kind of things. And also, while I was at Ernst & Young, we actually did, because we were now with a big brand, we could consult to the largest companies in the industry. And we actually got to see at a senior level what people are worried about, how they're trying to tackle it, and advise on it. And that's then how we got to the point where we thought there's something to be done here, and how we got to actually starting Naked.
So before we dive into your journey with Naked, we have a question from Mark Spagenberg. He says, in your opinion, is the lessons you learned in your early career essential to the success you achieved in your companies?
I would definitely say so. But I think you never stop learning, right? So like I said, I think especially in the early part of my career, widening my horizons and exposing myself to as many experiences as I could, I think, and the traveling and all of that definitely assisted with where I am today. I would definitely say that. So expose yourself, question things, listen widely to different opinions, even ones that make you angry, because I think it's important to hear a variety of views. And that's one of the things that sometimes worry me about where we are today, because with social media, it's so easy to start living in a bubble where you only hear people that think exactly the same as you do. Whereas if you think back to the 90s, where these things didn't exist, you were forced to and exposed to views that's different to yours, and you had to find ways of being open to those views, challenging your own views, and then forming maybe new views that from where you started. And I think that's really important. For the early part of my career, I would say that was one of the most important things. Afrikaans, white girl from Pretoria. What do you expect? I had to get exposed to other things.
So onto your journey with Naked. So I need to just say, I recently had used that phone for insurance, and it was literally the most, like, I actually enjoyed the process. It was so quick. It literally took me under like 2 minutes, because I'm so used to all the tedious paperwork, the backwards and forwards, trying to read all like the hidden terms and so on. But with Naked, it was so quick and it was so smooth, and I really enjoyed it. So it was such a great experience for me as a person, because usually I dread the process of going through like a lot of documentation, trying to find certain things and waiting for people to get back to me at a specific time. So my experience was amazing. And I just want to understand, like, what pain points did you have in mind when you decided to embark on this journey of of streamlining like insurance and short-term insurance? Because my experience was so amazing. And I'm surprised that it's only the first time that I experienced something like this. I mean, in 2021, like, why am I still filling out paperwork for my other devices when everything could literally just be streamlined like this?
No, thank you for saying that, because we're definitely on a mission to build a experience that people really at least like, and with insurance, that's being a growth purchase, that's really hard. But if I think maybe I should just take one step back. So like I said, when we were at EY, we consulted a lot of the big guys. And one of the projects that specifically myself, Alex, and Ernie did a lot was advising on how to get how can they get ready for the digital customer and what the digital customer wants. And time and again, we kind of advised how we thought these journeys could work and should work, and then came to the realization that at the end of it, these things never got implemented. Why? One is legacy systems, because remember, most of these insurers have big existing businesses that operate through a call center or through brokers, and to turn that ship around is really hard. So normally what they envisioned was something like omni-channel. So they still wanted to keep their broker or keep their call center, but then have a digital arm. And how we saw it is that couldn't work. If you want to give a pure digital experience that's quick, that's easy, that actually links into the external databases, those kind of things, you have to start from scratch. So that's in the end why we decided there's something to be done, and that the best way to do it is to actually start from scratch and not think about how it's being done at the moment. Why should you ask 40 questions when you can get what you need in 8 by using technology and other data sources, etc.? So it was that, together with the fact that I think the way in which cultures work in big corporates is not supportive of innovation. Why? Because risk-taking is not rewarded. If you have a company that's extremely profitable, because some of our short-term insurers are the most profitable in the world, if you take a risk with how you distribute or changing something in your process, and it reduces your profits. No one is going to say, oh, well, it was a worthwhile experiment. Let's try again. You're probably going to be sidelined or might even get fired. So what most people do in corporates is they rather stay safe. They'll make small tweaks or changes, but they'll never go out on a limb and try something. And I mean, even when we started Naked, the people we spoke to told us no one would be willing to buy without speaking to anyone, or to claim without speaking to anyone. So they were of the view that this is highly risky to build and try. But because of the fact that we started from scratch, totally different view on it, I guess.
So would you say that, so you mentioned that people didn't think it would kind of work to not talk to anyone through the process. So would you say that in the past, like insurance services weren't necessarily user-centric? They didn't have the end user as, the main point, and they didn't design it around that special user?
Well, I mean, that's a complicated one, because Naked, again, I think it has, what we've seen, it has broad market appeal, but it's not suitable for everyone in the market as yet. If you ask, for example, my mother, she would still, and she's 74, she still wants to speak to someone that takes her through things. And she also feels, it's a nice person to have a chat with, because she'll chat to them about other things as well. She's retired, she's got time, right? Whereas today, so I think when these models were put together originally, they were aimed at the customer and what technology was able to do then. But now, I think, especially if I look at our customer base, that is more, I would say, slightly younger, and don't actually want to speak to anyone. I think that means that what customers want are changing, and it's really hard for legacy players to give them exactly what they need.
Definitely understand that. Yeah. So what would you think were the biggest challenges that you came across, or the main challenge that with Naked that you actually had to just sit down and think for like a week? Like, what was it that you were experiencing?
Well, I think raising funding in the South African market is really hard. There are not a large amount of VCs out there. So getting startup capital is hard, to be honest. And insurance is a heavily regulated industry. So, it's not easy to just put something together and put it out there. So I think we were very lucky to get our original funding that we got, and that was one of the things we worried about quite a lot in the beginning. Where would we get funding? And a lot of people said we wouldn't. So that I'm very grateful for. The other things that I think we thought about a lot as well is, how do you make people trust you and believe what you're trying to do, given the fact that a lot of people are so jaded about the insurance industry to start off with. And that is one of the things that we spend a lot of time thinking about. And it's also one of the big reasons why we changed the way in which we make our profits. And the fact that we only take the flat fee, and if there's the rest of the money goes into a pot to pay claims. If there's any money left over in that pot at the end of the year, it goes to the Naked difference, which is causes that our community nominate. Because we thought we had to materially demonstrate that we're trying to rectify this relationship between the insurer and the customer, where, as you know, people have to carry dead bodies into some of the insurers to prove that the person has died, because every rand the insurer pays you at claim stage is a rand off their bottom line. And it's that inherent problem that we spend a lot of time to think, okay, how can we address that? And that's part of the biggest challenges I think we faced.
So now that you mentioned capital, we have a question from Sibabale, who says, two questions actually. First one is, how did you get your first capital to start the business? And two, your branding and marketing is great. How do you go about designing the brand and also your marketing strategy?
Oh, thank you. That's nice to know. I'll talk to both of them. Our initial capital we actually got from Yellowwoods, which is a fund that is owned by the Enthovens. They have a long history of actually investing in a variety of smaller businesses. They also are the owners of Nando's, Spear, etc. And I was fortunate enough to have actually done work for them over my years as a consultant. And when we also enjoy the way in which they partner, because I've firsthand experienced how they partner with other parties, because they normally, if they believe in you, they will give you the space to execute and won't crowd you, and actually be supportive when you need it, but will back off to give you the room to try and execute on your vision. And when we took the original ideas to them, we were lucky enough that they gave us some small amount of funding to start the journey that we were on. On the marketing, it's quite an interesting one, because we do all our marketing is produced in-house. And it's again one of those things where one of my other founders, Ernest, looks after all our marketing. And each of the areas of the business, we are trying to relook at the traditional model of doing it. I don't know which of you guys know how much insurers spend on marketing, but it is more than any retailer. Even no one gets close to how much insurers spend on marketing. And all that money that they spend on marketing comes out of the premiums that the customers pay. So we also are very closely looking at how we do the marketing. It's very much a digital strategy. We're trying to keep it simple. We're trying to keep it real. So I think sometimes the marketing guys want to pull their hair out if I tell them this does not come across as sincere. This is not who Naked is. So we honestly also rely heavily on our customers to tell other customers. We have a very strong referral program. And because we're digital, it works extremely well, because we can track where someone came from. So if you share your code, we reward you rather than paying some Facebook or Google or whatnot. Yeah.
So we have a question from Meraldo Wu, who says, what are the job functions for your first 5 hires in the company? Is it sales or marketing or business development or more technical specialists?
So the first 5 people we had, to be honest, was myself and Alex, who's one of my other founders, and Ernest North. And in the beginning, we didn't even think about marketing. And the other 2 hires I had was Lebo, who was one of my senior developers, and Jade, who's currently our CTO. So that was my first 5 hires. So it was basically devs and people with insurance knowledge. And then the next hire I made was actually a UX designer, Machi, and she is responsible for the whole look and feel of the brand that you see now. So marketing came quite a bit later, because remember, first we had to do the ground up build. And during that stage, I think one of the important things, if you build something, don't do it in a bubble. We kept on putting stuff in front of people, getting them to test it. If it was horrible, we would go back, tweak. And the interesting thing is, with 5 users, you can find out what's wrong with your design, what the biggest pain points are. So in the beginning, like I said, we focused on the developers, UX experience. Yeah, not marketing. That came later.
So given that you've already mentioned that your biggest challenges, you mentioned, were related to capital. From your experience with Naked, what to you was like the biggest lesson?
In terms of raising money?
Just overall, like on that journey, that specific journey, like what was your greatest lesson? Like something you'd want to impart with someone that you learned the most from?
Definitely the build fast and fail. That I would definitely say is, like I said, don't take ages to take a product to market. And you don't have to have a fully working product to go to market. I mean, I walked at shopping malls. The best place to go and test with people is if they're standing at Starbucks. So then I would just approach them. My daughters wanted to die. But definitely don't build stuff in a bubble, and don't wait until it's fully completed. The other thing that I think is super important is the people that you take on the journey with you. Make sure you take the right people on the journey with you, that you've got a diverse skill set, that you guys really trust each other, because building a business is really hard and there'll be hard times. And then it's important that the founders can actually work through that. And come out stronger on the other side. So for me, definitely those two things.
So I'll just ask a question that just has to be asked. So where do you see the insurance industry going in the future?
So I definitely see, well, I mean, they always say you have to not build for where things are supposed to be now. You should build for where you expect things will go into the future. So obviously I expect, especially personal lines insurance, to go in the direction of where we're going. I do think that consumers are expecting different things from their providers. They don't expect them to just be chasing shareholders' profits. I think they expect them to consider all stakeholders in decisions. And what do I mean with that? I mean, considering your shareholders, your customers, as well as your staff. And so my expectation is that that is definitely the direction that all insurers will move in eventually.
So we will head into the Q&A now. Just a reminder to anyone, if you have any questions, just pop them in the Q&A section. We'll just be reading from top down. A question from Yasachar. What was your biggest fear when founding Naked Insurance?
It's an interesting one because Alex, who started the company with me, made us go through a very interesting exercise because all of us were quite worried. I mean, we all have families. We are not 20 years old. We have financial responsibilities. All of us are the main breadwinners. It's, so what he made us do is he made us say, okay, if this fails, right, what is the worst thing that can happen to you? What are you going to do? What's going to happen? Okay, so you're going to sell your house, you can sell the car, move into a small flat, envision that whole thing. Can you live with that? And is this worth that for you? And if you've envisioned it and you felt what it feels like, it almost takes away that fear. Because if you know what's the worst thing if you're going to fail, it doesn't bother you that much anymore. Then you can focus on the real things, right? What you're trying to achieve rather than worrying what's going to happen if you don't do it. So I think that's a good thing to do. Think what's the worst thing. Close your eyes, experience it, really try and experience it, and then you can move on from that. So I saw myself in a small flat with my one-bedroom flat with my children. Not with my parents, and I thought this is worth it.
And I can imagine in a way it kind of also helps fuel like your drive to know that, okay, I've experienced this in my head. I don't actually want to see it come to fruition. So it kind of puts that drive into place even more.
Yeah.
So next question from Waldo Steenkamp. He says, have you ever felt that a new company or startup won't make it in the early days, and how did you go about motivating yourself to keep going?
I don't really know how to answer that, Anele, because I'm unfortunately one of these super naive people that always believe that things are going to work out. I still believe things are going to work out. So I think the question is more, sometimes things are hard when you're in a startup. And keeping your, so therefore, I think if you do something like this, you need to really believe in what you're trying to do. Before we started this, I told my husband I needed a serious career change because I was ashamed of what I was doing, working in the short-term insurance industry. If you tell people you work in short-term insurance, I've got some horrible story to tell. So I stopped telling people what I do. And that's not a life well lived. You need to feel as though you're making a contribution to society in your job. I think that's super important. And he asked me, do I think insurance is not necessary? Because I wanted really to go do something else. And I told him, actually, no, insurance is necessary for societies to thrive and grow. And he told me, so what's wrong with it? And that kind of put me on this journey. So I still believe that we'll be successful in the end. But when it gets hard, I go back to that. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because this is my skill set, and this is what I believe is the contribution that I can make in the society and to the people around me. To try and bring insurance to more people in a way that they actually like, and in the process help to uplift communities that they actually care about without taking any more money from them. Yeah.
A question from Meralda Wu, who says, how did you validate your business idea? If everyone told you it wouldn't work, do you have information that others don't that enabled you to make that decision?
So we did a lot of prototyping in the beginning, right? Before we went big time. So there's lots of tools these days that you can use for that. We used specifically Proto, where you can very quickly put something together and you can, and it looks as though you're actually on an app. And we user tested with that. And we user tested with different age groups. And based on that, it was pretty obvious to us that people can do this themselves and that they do understand. And the funny thing is, when we did user testing, you also need to, people are polite. They will tell you nice things. That's why you can't test with your family. You can't test with your mother because she will just think you're wonderful. And then you're not getting proper feedback. And the funny thing is, what we used to do is we used to escalate with these people that we were testing with. So you would take them through the process and you'll say, okay, so what do you think? Will you buy? We're launching. And then they'll say, yeah, definitely buy. And so, well, we're launching in a month's time. Can we take your name and your number so that when we launch, we'll let you know, And then you'll see some people will back off because now you have to give personal information. Some of them might then still say, okay, yes, we'll give you that. And then you'll say, okay, to get first dibs, you have to give us $50, Then you can be one of our. So you kept on escalating and escalating. And in the beginning, lots of people said no. As we improved our process, and you have to build confidence that this is real, this is working, we actually got people right through. And then we knew we've got something we can build. We can start actually investing real money in this, get funds. Yeah, so.
Question from Namalan Reddy says, if you had to summarize your key reason for success and some of the biggest mistakes you've made in developing Naked?
Like I said, I think choosing the right people and hiring the right people, that's no one can do anything like this on their own. I think the team we've got at Naked is amazing. They're super passionate about what we do. They're very, very talented. So without them, so that's really, really important. One of the things, if I think back, I think I would think twice about always being on the bleeding edge with technology. At some stages, we were like on certain parts of AWS, we as Naked were like their lead user of some of their new stuff that they were putting out. Yeah, I might think twice about that next time. About being as adventurous as that. But yeah.
Question from Alexander Steinberg. Do you think you could have started a business outside the domain, being insurance?
Looking back on it now, I would say, and this is going to sound so arrogant, I would say yes, because a lot of the stuff a lot of the principles, a lot of is very similar across domains. I think what helped us definitely because we knew about insurance is because insurance is so heavily regulated, and navigating the regulations that were written, not specifically for insurtechs, they were written for call centers or brokers. Having a very intimate knowledge of that legislation and what the intention is and how to apply it in our space helped a lot. But I think, general business principles of how to build a team, how to build a tech business, how to effectively market, all those kind of things, how to raise funding. I think that's applicable across the board.
Question from Julian. Was there any non-financial support you were able to get in the start of Naked Insurance, or any non-financial support you struggled to get?
Well, I think the biggest gap is people with experience in technology businesses in South Africa. So building a technology business, there's not that many people in South Africa that have been doing it for a long time that you can actually use to support you and that you can bounce ideas off. So I think that's one of the things definitely that, even if I talk to other founders of technology businesses, that is definitely one of the things that I would say. But again, we had lots of people in industry, because in the beginning, a lot of people that bought from us was in industry, and that actually gave us feedback, questioned things that helped a lot, which wasn't financial, but input from our customers and taking that on board, including the industry, was really helpful. Yeah, and that was not financial, but just general goodwill and support from existing customers helped a lot.
Question from Zanella Mpofu. She says, as a female co-founder, discriminated against or treated differently to your male co-founders? If so, how did you navigate through these situations?
I think I'm very lucky. I've always worked in a male-dominated industry, or and to be honest, these things are complicated, but I'm lucky enough. That's what I'm saying. It's really important that you choose the people that you're going to start your business with in the right way. Both Ernie and Alex I've worked with for years and years, and we all complement each other in terms of the skill sets that we've got. So I didn't really encounter any of that in terms of starting Naked. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but I was fortunate enough not to have that as being part of Naked, because of the fact that I started it with people that I knew really well and that I had a long history with, of starting a previous business with as well.
Question from Nimelin Reddy. What do startups need in South Africa that would make them better succeed?
Like I said, I think one of the big problems is that there is not a lot of VC funding available. And I didn't really experience a lot of startup, how can I put this, like support for people who start a business. In the sense that starting a business is not just about the product. It's also about running the business, about the finances, about the, so there's almost like a broad business knowledge that's required here as well. And it feels to me as though there is not enough incubators, if you want to call it that, that supports in terms of that part of it. Yeah, so you might have a cool idea, but then you struggle to get VC funding and in South Africa, and then also to get the business going, the business side of things going. A lot of young entrepreneurs, don't always get the right support in terms of that.
Sibabale says, you mentioned raising funding in SA is hard. What were some of the challenges that you encountered and how did you overcome them? Also, how did the Naspers deal come about?
So I think it's hard because there's no angel funding, if you know what I mean by that. So there's not someone, if you look in Europe or in America, people will give you a small amount to actually start and try. Whereas in South Africa, there is nothing like that. So you almost have to have built out a lot more. And then the first time you ask for funding, you're asking for more because the guys who invest is not used to just giving you a small amount. They normally give you a bit more and your idea needs to be more developed. So that I think was one of the challenges. How do you balance and navigate that? Because there's no one who's going to give you 500,000 to go try your idea. So the people are more interested in investing a bigger amount in a more mature idea. So that was quite tricky. Sorry, what was the other part of it? Oh, Naspers funding. So we started, so we launched the business to the public in April 2018, and our growth was really good. The business was looking good, and basically what we did is Alex and myself specifically just went around the market with our little pack, and we approached people and told them our story, and it was quite a long journey to get to where we did to raise the Naspers funding. But yeah, it was basically, I think our consulting experience helped with that a lot because, you know, we were experienced in doing cold calling, approaching people, and the naked product was out there already, so they could go and experience it, because that's normally the first thing I would ask people when we started talking about funding. Go and try it, see what it's like. The system is already there, and I think that helped quite a lot. And our existing funders in the form of Yellowwoods actually assisted quite a lot in terms of making introductions for us with people. Yeah.
Sean Brock asks, what advice do you have for raising money and how to balance raising money versus diluting yourself too much?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, huh? No, that's a tricky one. So advice for raising money. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can actually, just by Googling, where they'll tell you what needs to be in your deck. So we definitely did quite a lot of that. So just looking at, I mean, places like Google Ventures or whatever, what do they advise? What should be in your deck? Normally, deck shouldn't be too long. Most important part of your deck is your elevator pitch, that you have to make sure that people understand exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it and why people would want it in about 4 sentences. Otherwise, that's the main thing that gets you in the door, is your elevator pitch. And then it's about 8 slides after that. Like I said, there's lots of stuff on the internet that can help you with that we also used. And what was the second part?
How do you balance
dilution? Yeah. Don't raise too big amounts in the beginning, and that's one of the hard things in South Africa, because like I said, it's much better to build up the valuation of your business before you start raising bigger amounts, because every time you raise, you don't want to dilute. You want to make sure that the valuation of your business goes up commensurate with the raise that you want to do, so that the founders maintain an interest in the business. Because also, if the founders dilute too much, investors doesn't like that. They want the founders to be heavily invested in the business, so that if the business does well, they will also do well, so that they're motivated to give their all to the business. So what's important is start small where you can, and then gradually grow as the value of your business grows, so that you don't dilute.
Question from Lebo Hang. Are there any resources you can recommend to get information or knowledge that could help early startups?
So definitely, if you haven't read Lean Startup, go and read it. That was the book that convinced us that we could do this. It talks about a lot of the things that I spoke about, the user testing, the testing small, not investing too much in the beginning to make sure your idea has got legs and that you can refine it. So that's definitely a good place to start. Google Ventures have a lot of good advice if you go and have a look at their site.
And our last question is from...
Maybe one more thing. Another book is Sprint. That's also by Google Ventures. That also gives you a detailed handbook on how to do user testing, which was invaluable. JP Knapp is the guy who wrote it. But if you go into Google Ventures, you'll see it.
Question from Sibabale says, what is the culture at Naked and how did you come with the name and what does it mean for you?
Cool. So the naming a company is a big pain for anyone who hasn't named a company. It took us months and months. Lots of different names, horrible ones. Oh my word. And in the end, we actually even paid someone in Cape Town to spend a morning with us to try and come up with a list of names. And after that, we still didn't have a name. And then Ernie went out for lunch to go and buy us some takeaways. And Alex and I were sitting with the list. And Alex told me to stop being so negative, to try and just engage with the list, because I was telling him I don't want it, this is all junk. So then he went down the list again, and one of the names was Naka, which is a constellation of stars somewhere very theoretical. So I told him, listen, dude, I would rather be naked than Naka. And he was like, yeah, we should be naked. It speaks to everything that we stand for. Transparency, what you see is what you get, vulnerability, all of that. And when Ernie came back from lunch, we were naked. So after months of not knowing and not finding the perfect name, it kind of just happened, to be honest. The culture at Naked is a very interesting one. One of my big passions is actually the people I work with and creating a place for them where they can grow and they can develop and where they can actually execute on their responsibilities. Now, this sounds like a really simple thing. If you've been in a corporate, you are given responsibility, but you are not given the autonomy or the power to actually execute on it. It was one of my big things I learned while I was in a corporate. And one of our big aims at Naked is to make sure that we maintain that culture of innovation, very flat structures. We don't have huge titles or anything like that because that also stifles things. So I can talk about this for ages. So I'm not sure exactly where to take it from here, but we believe very much in candid feedback, not too many rules, but we do believe that you have to consult widely, but that if you are given a specific responsibility, you need to execute on it. And I need to give you the power to do that. But the team is really cool. They're really young. I'm the old person there. I think our average age is something like 24. So it's a bunch of young people that I really love working with. Very talented bunch of young people. So yeah. And
our last question from Timothy is, how do you plan on being different in an industry that struggles to have a decent delivery track record?
I think I spoke a little bit about that. The one thing is, what you see is what you get. So this whole thing of all these hidden terms and conditions, keeping the product simple, understandable, is really important, and affordable. Of course, affordable is always first. And the second thing is what I spoke about in terms of the naked difference. People do what they are incentivized to do. So it's not that they're evil or anything like that. If your incentives are structured in a way where you will get a bigger bonus if your claims is lower, you are going to, not because you're evil, but just because that's how your KPIs work, you are probably not going to be the nicest person if someone comes and claims. And that is the reason why we broke that link between our profitability and the level of claims that we pay in a year. So we make money like a normal technology company. We charge you a fee for the platform. The rest of the money goes into a pot. If there's money left over, it goes to causes and communities that our customers care about, because insurance, in our view, is a community activity. So instead of taking that into our bottom line, we don't. It goes to these causes. And if there's not enough money in the pot, we've got reinsurance. That's why we say we're underwritten by Hollard, so that their balance sheet at the moment backs us. Although we do have ambitions to get our own license in time, but that's also very capital intensive. So how is my guys incentivized, and how do I make sure the experience is different? My guys are incentivized to have as many people on the platform that are happy, that stays on the platform, so that we keep on earning the platform fee, and that tells other people about it, so that I don't have to pay large amounts of marketing costs. So that's just going to increase the price of my product. And just that small switch in incentive of, you get incentivized to reduce loss ratios versus you get incentivized to get as many people on the platform that like the platform, makes the world of difference in our view.
So that was the last question. Thank you so much again for joining us today. You've shared like a lot of insights and knowledge, and people in the comments feel the same way. So the video will be available on YouTube in about 2 days. So anyone who's interested can just go to Startup Grind local YouTube channel, and there'll be a playlist for Startup Grind Cape Town where the video will be available. Once again, Sumarie, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, highly appreciated, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you again on a fireside chat or pitch event soon.
No, it was brilliant. Thanks everyone for your time. I always never feel worthy of it. So thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Thanks. Have a lovely evening, guys.
Thank you.